there's the story about the guy with the tochacha, in which they were having trouble finding who would get the tochacha aliyah. And so they found a guy, Yankala, the schlepper, and they paid him to get the tochacha aliyah. And so there they are, and they're at Shacharis, and Chazar Tashas are looking around. He's not there. What's going to be? So then they bring up the Torah. He's still looking around. Where is he coming? And they start the Torah reading. It's getting really close, and about to get to the aliyah for the tochacha. He comes running in to schwitzed. And they're able to call him up for the tochacha, and they call him up for the tochacha, which is the rebuke. So nobody really wants it, right? And they give it so he gets the aliyah. But they said after that, well, we've been so nervous here. I've been waiting for you. We paid for you to do this. What took so long? He said, you think I can make a living on doing this just at one shul?
Oh, that's really funny. I've never heard that before.
You've heard that before? Okay, I thought I would like that's too classic.
Today's conversation is with Rabbi Adam Starr. He's the rabbi of the Congregation Ohr HaTorah in Atlanta since 2008. And before that, he was the associate rabbi at the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale, New York for 8 years. Rabbi Starr and I share a similar personality trait. We're both introverts, who both somehow found ourselves in the unlikely career of speaking in front of lots of people on a consistent basis.
If anybody knew Adam Starr as a kid, and you would tell them he would be up there as a pulpit rabbi speaking every week, they would be like, what are you talking about?
In this insightful episode of the Maggid Method, we explore this phenomenon. How is it that shy and socially reserved people like ourselves are somehow able to come to life and turn it on when it's showtime, whether it's speaking from the pulpit or mixing in socially after services at the Kiddush? We can become what I like to call extroverts on demand. Rabbi Starr and I boil it down to 3 things: someone who believes in you, someone to model yourself after, and a deep, almost irrational love for what you're doing.
I knew I loved Jewish life, and I loved everything about Judaism from a young age. That it always spoke to me. But I didn't, just because I loved that, I didn't know I would be good at portraying that to others.
This allows the most timid, taciturn, and tight-lipped personality to shine when the spotlight is turned on them. So if that describes you, you'll want to listen closely. Rabbi Starr and I also share the emotional obstacle we experience when attempting to prepare our talks too far in advance.
If I sat down to write a drush on Monday, nothing would come out.
We want to. It would make life easier if we were more planned out, but for some reason, the muse does not show up until after the pressure of the deadline arrives. In part 2 of this episode, which is a natural outgrowth of the first topic, we discuss the rabbi's seat. We talk about the sage on the stage location of seating versus sitting with the congregation, either at the front or even in the middle, the pros, the cons, and the rationale behind them both. I really enjoyed my conversation with Rabbi Adam Starr. I'm sure if we lived closer to each other, we'd be great introvert friends. And I learned so much from him, and I'm sure you will too. So now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Rabbi Adam Starr.
Part 1. Growing up. Can you say a few words?
So tell me some of your models for when you, I know before you got to Atlanta, you were in Riverdale. And if you could put yourself all the way back to the beginning of your career, where did you learn, who did you model yourself after? Any inspirations or influences that you look back?
Sure. So first of all, this is interesting, which is in terms of my background, if anybody knew Adam Starr as a kid, and you would tell them he would be up there as a pulpit rabbi speaking every week, they would be like, what are you talking about? I'm naturally shy. I actually, and this is a big part, and I've spoken about this in Holly's sermon. I don't know clinically, but I was an elective mute until not that in kindergarten, but like authority figures I would not speak to. I had other kids, I was little, but still little kids, talk to the teacher on my behalf because I wouldn't do that. And that's still part of who I am. And I was very quiet in general. So this idea that I would have this space, this speaking space, is very much, people wouldn't expect it, but to some degree, because that's part of my identity, there's something very powerful and liberating that a big part of my professional life is my voice, when my voice was something that was quiet for much of, from my childhood self, I guess you could say. So I know that's not the question you asked, but
Fascinating. Yeah.
but I'm not one of those people like I grew up and I knew I was going to be a pulpit rabbi at all. That was my key message. I didn't know that I had this ability or this talent, and it kind of, when I did it, I got a rush out of it. I actually got a high out of it, and I actually felt I was able to communicate in this forum in ways that I never thought I would be able to do it. And the first place that it was in is when I was working as an assistant rabbi for Rabbi Avi Weiss in Riverdale, and I still remember my praba there as an assistant rabbi. I'm pretty sure he probably had counted me out already, and nevertheless I gave the drasha, and I will never forget this. And he said to me after I got down, and I'd never given a drasha before, like. He said, it's like Clark Kent turning into Superman. I mean, I was 25 years old or something. I was able to come out of myself in a certain way. I'm sure I would look back at the drush and be like, what the heck was that? But number one, having Rabbi Weiss believed in me, and also he's a master darshan. And watching him taught me a lot. Our styles are distinct, although sometimes I almost hear his voice coming in my voice when I'm up there, the way he would do things. And that was very, very powerful. Both the idea somebody believes in you, helps you, and also can model for you. And the other is Rabbi J.J. Schachter, attending his Yarchik Kalas that he had for rabbis. He taught me about the structure of a drasha. Calls it the H, in which you start with something, and then which is kind of the opener usually, and then you go to something else, and then at the end it puts the H together, that you see how it all relates to, right, creating that interest. Well, where is he going? It keeps people in, and then it comes together, and his materials and things like that. That's also very influential on me. So I would say those two experiences were very formative in my upbringing in terms of being drushes.
I'm so curious how you bridge that gap from being that kind of reticent, shy type of introverted person that it sounds like becoming a pulpit speaker. I mean, even if you say you kind of outgrew it after you were younger, but still you probably never, like you said, you probably never considered yourself a public.
I would say I outgrew the not talking at all, but I was always more shy. I was never the first person to talk. I still am not. I think I'm measured with my words in general. I'm not one of those rabbis who they like to talk about rabbis. They just love to talk and blah blah blah. Like, I don't just love to talk. I feel I'm blessed to be able to have a voice, and that when I use my voice, I have what to say. And I guess that's a space where I have that opening to say, and hopefully something of substance and of value. And yeah, there's still the rush, and there's still a high, because it's like, sometimes I can't believe I'm doing this.
Sure. Yeah. Do you find interpersonal communication easier? Is it that? Is that the?
Yeah, I mean, I would say early on, Kiddush was like, I had to coach myself in my own head, okay, to be more outgoing and to reach out to people. It's still this is still part of who I am, but I don't think about it anymore. I mean, I've coached myself. This is who I am. I know how to work the room in a kiddush now because I've taught myself how to do that. But that's not that's not naturally me, even though I think I'm decent at it. But I've taught myself to do that. That it now comes almost second nature.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I think people are surprised often when I tell people I'm an introvert because I can be an extrovert on demand. But
Right.
but the difference is my wife's a big extrovert and I'm an introvert. But
Uh-huh.
I guess what they say is that the difference is an introvert feels drained after such an experience. An extrovert thrives on it.
Yeah, so that's interesting you say that because I definitely view myself as an introvert. My wife is more of an extrovert. But when I do this and I feel I do it well, I actually don't feel drained. I feel energized.
That's great. That's really good. I have to get to where you are. Yeah. People also find they find it interesting that stand-up comedy, how can you be an introvert and being a stand-up comic? But I think Jerry Seinfeld was able to articulate this really well, that
Yeah,
it's like it takes more skill to speak to three people, in a room than it does to speak to 3,000 people,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they're seeing a version of you that you want them to see, and
Uh,
it's all the fat has been trimmed away, and it's just exactly what you want them to see.
uh,
Whereas all your foibles are all up front and personal. When you're dealing with people one on one. So
yeah,
I get that. I get that.
yeah.
Um, so tell me a little bit about your experience at YU at REITs. Did you take? I guess they have a homiletics over there and public speaking
Yeah.
course.
So what's interesting is when I was in REITs, I was not in the pulpit track. I was in the educational track. So it was just not even. It's a fascinating story how I ended up in the pulpit. But I was not even. That was not even a havamina. That was not within what I thought was going to be. I thought I was going to be a teacher, an educator. That's the space where I was in. So I was in that track. I never took homiletics, which is really interesting because Rabbi Haskell Luxstein teaches homiletics. So the shul that I'm in now has his oldest daughter Mindy and son-in-law. So he comes every a few times a year to teach, but I didn't. And to visit, to visit a family, and I have given sermons in front of him, which is very nerve-wracking. Usually when it comes, I try to get him to give the sermon, but I have spoken in front of him, but I wasn't trained by him. Thank God he's given me good feedback, I think. But I never had the formal training in semicha itself. I really picked up, as I mentioned, being an assistant under Rabbi Weiss. I learned a lot by watching and learning from him, and then later on with Rabbi Schachter, learning some other skills as well. But it didn't at REITs. That was not what I was doing.
So how did you end up going from chinuch into the rabbinate?
Okay, it's a fascinating story, and well, first I'll take one step back. How did I wasn't even sure I wanted to be a rabbi. I knew I loved Jewish life and I loved everything about Judaism from a young age. That it always spoke to me, but I didn't, just because I loved that, I didn't know I would be good at it, good at portraying that to others. But you don't know. I mean, I could love this Judaism, and I wanted to know that I would be good. And so camp is a very big part of who I am and my upbringing. And one of the amazing things about camp is that you get to do things at a younger age that you would not be able to do in the real world. That's the blessing of camp. So I think I don't know, 18, and I remember it was a class that I gave to some of the staff. It was a Tisha B'Av night, and I gave a class.
Which camp is?
This is Camp Moshava, which is a big part of who I am. And I gave this, and I felt good, and it was effective, and there were other. My wife's aunt was actually there, and she said, "You're a really good teacher," and she was involved in education. So it's like, oh my gosh, maybe I actually can do this. It's not just I like Judaism. It's like I can portray this. So then I went to smicha, but thought I was going to education. So basically, to make a long story short, I was in Gross Kollel. I got a call from Rabbi Weiss's assistant at the time, Rabbi Shmuel Hertzfeld, We were in Grus Kolel coming back. I did another year of smicha. Wanted to make some money on the side. So they had a youth director position. I was going to apply for the youth director position. There I am, and applying for the youth director's position, and they actually said, "Well, we actually have an opening for one of our assistant rabbis." And I'm like, "I didn't apply for this position," and they're like, "You want to try out for it?" I don't. It's crazy when I think about it. And somehow I tried out for it, even though I didn't really want it. And next thing, I'm giving this sermon, and I've never given a sermon really before. And I worked with my father-in-law on it, and then I got there, and then that story that I told you, with Rabbi Weiss coming over, and soon after that, I never looked back. I feel it's my calling, it's my passion. I can't see doing anything else.
Yeah, amazing. It's like the pilot having a heart attack or something, and then they're just like, "Here, you fly the plane."
Right, yeah.
Right. That's hilarious.
Are you tired of the same old lecture programs that feel more like a snooze fest than a stimulating discussion? Picture this: an event filled with laughter.
One of the funniest men I've seen in many years is right here, Steinberg. He's the guy.
Inspiration and invaluable insights straight from the mouths of over 60 congregational leaders.
It was really well done. It was really well done.
We're talking about a lecture that dives deep into the art of crafting and delivering sermons.
In my mind, like, every rabbi sits down and writes a speech on Friday, but it's not true.
Packed with incredible stories, hilarious jokes, and public speaking techniques that I've gleaned from my interviews with over 60 of the best pulpit rabbis and public speakers today.
Educational, fun, but also kind of practical, because I also learned some lessons from it.
But hold on, this isn't your typical scholar-in-residence affair. This is a dynamic fusion of stand-up comedy.
There was a lot of humor in the presentation.
And was extremely funny.
Everybody was laughing. Nobody was bored.
Jewish history and pulpit wisdom from over 60 rabbis that promises to keep the audience engaged from start to finish.
There were a lot of questions. Everybody tried to keep Rabbi Steinberg longer.
If you're ready to experience the most inspirational, educational, and downright entertaining lecture,
Found it not only funny, but very relatable.
You won't want to miss out on this opportunity to put on a one-of-a-kind event. Email Daniel@maggidmethod.com for availability and booking information. Email Daniel at maggidmethod.com. This is one program your members won't soon forget.
You need to go, is what I would say.
Now back to the program.
So tell me about some of your most memorable experiences in Riverdale at the it's called the Bayit. Is that what the
Bayit, HIR? Yeah.
So some of the highlights from you were there 8 years.
So I was there 8 years. So the highlights was really seeing a community of values, and a community of warmth and welcoming, which created, I would say, a Judaism of love and wanting to be there, and in a non-judgmental space. And I also saw a model of with Rabbi Weiss, who was who really is a master darshan, and the way he could share ideas, pull on heartstrings, and connect to people through that medium.
What are some of the things that you've taken from him in terms of speaking that are memorable to you, that you say sometimes you hear your voice emulating his?
My heart's out on the table. It's passionate. It's, as I said, it's inspiring and invigorating. But I put it all out there, and I think he put it all out there. It's you know, and I really believe that, and which is a lot to do with when I'm preparing a drasha. You know, a lot of in the beginning is intellectual. You're thinking about this, and a lot of my preparation is I explore a lot of ideas before I know where I'm going. And then I kind of wait for that moment. Sometimes it's nerve-wracking because the week is moving on and that moment's not there yet until I feel it. like when idea feel like I know when that happens, I'm good to go, but you don't know when it's going to happen.
A minute on demand. It doesn't show up for just on demand. That's right.
Right.
What's the latest that passion has ever shown up for you, where you were still
Okay, so here's the secret, for all your listeners. I am a Erev Shabbos drasha writer. I maybe ideas percolating throughout the week. I thrive on that pressure. I used to, still a little bit, wish it wasn't that way. But there's something about the pressure that causes things to connect for me and allow that emotional connection to exist. If I sat down to write a drush on Monday, nothing would come out. Ideas can percolate in the back of my mind, but it doesn't come together until Erev Shabbos. I wouldn't say I recommend this for people. Yeah, Yamim Narim, there I can pull back a few days, but I hear these rabbis write their drushes in the summer. I would literally sit there and nothing would come out. So, if anybody's like me,
yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, you need that kind of heart pounding type of
I need that. I wish I didn't, but I do. So
yeah.
It's the way I'm wired.
Wreak havoc on your psyche that you're really scrambling at the last minute to come up with something.
Right, but I spend time, and I don't want to think that like I just throw it out there. I spend the time, somehow have an inner clock that knows how much I need. That I don't remember. I mean, maybe they're here or there that I've ever gone into Shabbos with nothing prepared. I don't think I've ever done that. There may have been a time I had to scratch a drasha because of something that happened or this and that, but also very, very few and far between.
Part 2. Where do you lead from?
I just want to go back for a moment to how did you go from assistant rabbi to the rabbinate in a position in Atlanta? Where did that, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I was a young rabbi and an assistant rabbi, and as I said, along the way fell in love with the rabbinate and what that entailed. I was in a blessed position in which they were not looking to get rid of me, but I would say 5-6 years in, I felt like I wanted my own place. So, but I was in a good position, which I did not need to jump at any position because they were happy to keep me. So, but I started interviewing 5-6 years into that. But I could wait till it felt like the right place. So went on numerous prabhas. Prabhas are the most exhausting thing in the world. Okay, talk about exhausting. Prabhas are exhausting. For those who know, prabhas are rabbinic tryouts. Okay, I mean that you're literally on like literally every second. They're just watching you. What are you doing, right?
And your kid.
And you're and your wife and your kids and you're this and you're that, right? And I came here, and I felt that I came just for an interview here before I came for the Shabbos. So I came during the week, and I remember calling my wife and I said, "This is going to be it." And then we came for the Shabbos for the Shabbos Prabha, and she's like, "You're right. It felt right." What I like about that the shul, it was in a house then. It was a small shul. It was in a house. I had another offer from a much larger shul, and I turned them down. And they were like, "What are you doing? Like this is like a small shul in a house. Like there wasn't even room in that place. My office was off-site. It was like." But I felt it was the right types of people. It felt at home. It felt that I could build and shape in my image. And we're actually celebrating in Rosh Hashanah 10 years of our new building. I've been here 15 years now. And I feel like I've really grown with the shul, and hopefully the shul has grown with me. And it just feels like the right shidduch.
Yeah, amazing. That's really nice.
From my perspective, I hope they feel the same.
I saw that it's an environmentally sustainable building. Is that the very first shul ever?
So it's first Orthodox shul built from scratch as environmentally sustainable. There was a man on the search committee, and Jeremy Sarnett, this is his professional area. And he was able to show that this could be done in a way that did not break the bank and could actually have cost savings. And I'm a big believer, when we were going through the building, that a building is not just a space, just like the Mishkan, and I give a lot of drashas about that, is a reflection of values. So the ramp in the front, that's an expression of values, who we are, what we stand for, the way the seats are set up in a way that it's sort of in the round-ish, which is the communal voice. It's not a performance. I don't sit on the stage. Okay, I lead from within. That's my style. I don't sit from the top. And I made that very clear from the beginning, right? I'm not going to be the rabbi sitting on stage. No offense to any rabbis who sit on the stage, but that was the great thing. I got to design my shul. I got to design it in the way with the values that I had. I didn't have to come into something, but I was very much involved in the building committees, especially in the sanctuary. That was my primary space. And I got to build it. And even the way it's set up for a drasha, that was important to me. That it's not long and narrow, but it's more wide. There's no there's no clear back where you can hide out. That I can look and there's this in both sides of the mechitza, and I can see who I'm speaking with. That I can catch eyes with somebody as I'm speaking. I find it very difficult if you don't have that connection. Then you're just saying words. A drasha is connecting to people.
Sure. Yeah, I when I assumed the interim role at the shul over here, I was in Avelis, so it felt to me that I should stay by my seat. I changed my seat for Avelis, and so for the first 4 months or so, I was in the middle. I was leading, like you're saying, from the middle, and it was and then when over Sukkot, when my Avelis was over, I assumed the stage and sat in that throne up there, and it just felt completely different. It was a complete difference, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's shifting in some places, and I understand the Kavod Rab. It's just not my style. I also I have sat up there when I was trying out for this position. It felt so uncomfortable and inauthentic to who I am. And also, I have a clear space where I sit, and it's in the front of the congregation, but it's within the congregation. It's also important. I don't want my kids to be on stage. I want my kids to be able to daven next to me and not to be on stage. Yes, I'm the rabbi and they know where, but that is just who I am, and I was able to design it that way because I built the shul.
Yeah, my kids loved it, by the way.
Right. So everybody's got different types of kids. Some kids love it. I don't think my kids will love it.
Part 3. Tell me your pet peeves.
Tell me your pet peeves for drushas. When maybe if you've ever sat in on someone else's drushas, and sometimes some things that just rankle at you when you see other people do.
Yeah. It's a drasha is not for the rabbi to show off how knowledgeable you are. And I'm sure we all fall into that. I'm sure I fall, right? That is, and you want to give substance. I remember once again, substance is very important to my drashas. You want to give substance, but you don't need to give 10 sources, right? The idea is to tease out the deep, profound message from a few sources. So I think when you're turning a drasha into a shir, where this is a unique medium. A shir is very important, but a drasha, it's the art, and I think when people move away from the art, because it's almost frummer to move away from the art, or it shows I'm a bigger Talmud Chacham, I think you're moving away from what this is.
Yeah, it's funny. You remind me of something that Charlie Harari said, where he said that there was someone who was giving, maybe it was a drasha, maybe it was a class or something, and he motioned for someone to bring a sefer to him.
Previously on the Maggid Method.
One time a friend of mine asked for a book in the middle of a class. He's like, yeah, excuse me, can you get me that sefer in the back thing? And why'd you do that for? He's like, no, it's a move. And I'm like, what's the move? The move is, in my head, I'm so learned, so I'm going to ask, that whole way, not real. And people can smell that.
Okay, so the last question, it's one question that's two, which is two pieces of advice that you would have for a new rabbi that he's embarking on his career. Could be speaking related, not necessarily, but two pieces of advice that you would use to set him up for success as he embarks on his rabbinate.
The more you're able to speak to allow your inner self to come out, which is harder when you're younger, I think, because as younger, it's more like I prepared and I have this to share. But the more you're able to have that confidence to kind of let my voice come through, I think and hearing that voice is a really an essential element, because that's how people connect. Meaning today's day and age, you can hear anything you want to hear, right? What's the difference between me? Because these are my people and I have a connection with them, and they're going to have a connection with me. And another teacher, Rabbi Weiss, taught me, he was like, when you've been there for a family, they're going to respect what you say in a drasha much more because you matter to them. So where it might have been a nice idea, but now that rabbi cared for me, was there for me in my whatever time it was. Like, he's not just saying words. His words, he's a caring person who cares about me, and that causes people to reflect on the words a little more.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I've heard people say that it's reciprocal, because the drasha sometimes will get people to open up to tell the rabbi that they have an issue, and then and then at the same time they'll also resonate more, like you're saying, with the drasha after you've helped them. So it becomes a loop where you're pastoral care and the drasha are both kind of helping each other, supporting each other.
And look, I'll be honest with you, I think we're in a time when I think less people are appreciative of the drasha. Everyone makes the jokes, the rabbi's not speaking, like, and that concerns me, because it's how fast can you get out of shul and all this other stuff. And we rabbis must be cognizant you cannot speak as long as you used to 20 years ago, 15 years ago. The attention span, we do need to be sensitive to that. And there is a reality, and we need to find ways to say things more succinctly and realize people's attention spans is not what it is. At the same time, I think, unfortunately, there aren't enough that give a chance to allow the drasha to be transformative, to say, I'm going into this space, and for these 10, 12 minutes, let me be fully present. It's easy for me to say, I guess, but I wonder if we need to almost teach congregants what it means to treasure that period of what shul is. I think the older congregants, I think the younger generation, I think there's a much less of appreciation of the art.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow. Thank you so much.
Hey there, fellow podcast listeners. I have a small favor to ask, one that can make a big difference. Your feedback is invaluable to me. By taking a moment to rate and review this podcast, you're not only showing your support, but also helping it reach new heights. Picture this: more reviews means more visibility. More visibility means more incredible guests lining up to share their stories and expertise with you. So, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, how about making some magic happen? Scroll down, tap that rating, jot down a few words. It's that simple. Your action today can pave the way for even greater experiences tomorrow. Thanks for your support. You've been listening to The Maggid Method, and I'm Daniel Steinberg. Learn more about the Maggid Method at maggidmethod.com, maggidmethod.com. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.